Islam at a Glance is brought to you by
रिस्को कंस्ट्रक्शन कॉरपोरेशन। मकानात की नए सिरे से तामीर हो या घर और दफ्तर की है रेनोवेशन का मसला, तो रिस्को कंस्ट्रक्शन कॉरपोरेशन की खिदमात हासिल कीजिए। 100% इंश्योरेंस के साथ मुकम्मल काम, मुनासिब दाम। रिस्को कंस्ट्रक्शन कॉरपोरेशन। फ़ोन 9166429006।
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillahi ahda wassalatu wassalamu man la nabiyya ba'da. Dear viewers, today our topic of the talk today is Islam and the cultural self-assertion. Culture is something that develops over a big long period of time. It has in it the flavor of what a nation or a community has gone through, all the historical events that has happened and the environment in which a particular community has lived over the years, over the decades, over the centuries. That defines the culture. So culture develops over a long period of time. So if we talk about the relation of the culture and Islam, we see that at the time of the advent of Islam, there were some pre-existing cultures in the world, and there were some cultures that developed afterwards. And we will talk about them more, especially the cultures of our times. But the point that I want to make clear in the beginning is that there is no conflict between culture and Islam. The only thing that Islam does is that Islam has some values, and if you call a culture an Islamic culture, that will be a mix of the values of Islam and the tradition of a particular culture. So there's a combination of these two that defines a culture of a particular nation or a particular community. So Islam is very friendly with the cultures, and it only gives certain broad values that it has to follow, and other than that it accepts the culture. So it is possible that Islamic culture in one place of the world will be different than the Islamic culture in another place of the world, because due to the interaction with the local culture, Islam has developed certain norms, certain standards that are prevailing in particular societies. So there can be differences within the Islamic cultures also. If we take an example from what happened during the time of Prophet ﷺ, it will be easier to understand how Islam interacts with the cultures. During the time of the pre-Islamic times, which is called the time of Jahiliyyah, in that time it was a tribal society in Arabia, and there was a saying, it's a unsur akhaka zaliman aw mazluma. This was not only a slogan, but actually this was practiced in Arabia, in that tribal culture. So they always advocate this kind of behavior. That the meaning of this Arabic statement is that unsur akhaka, help your brother, zaliman or mazluma, regardless if he is zalim or he is transgressor or he is being transgressed. In either way, because he belongs to your tribe, that you have to help him. So when Prophet ﷺ mentioned the same thing, the same statement in front of his Sahaba, the Sahaba who has now reverted to Islam, and then they are growing up in this society where there was no sense of helping the aggressor. So they asked this question to Prophet ﷺ: we can help our brother when he is Mazloom or he is being transgressed. By helping him, we can bring him out of that situation. But how we can help our brother if he is zalim or he is the transgressor? So Prophet ﷺ told them that you can help your brother by stopping him from transgression, by stopping his hand from transgressing or from making zulm on other people. This is helping him. So what he did is that if you take it in the cultural sense, he did not completely wipe out the culture of Arabia, but he changed the meaning. He changed the meaning of the same things, just introduced the Islamic values to it. Sometimes in the last 50-60 years, when there was a assertion of communism and leftist politics in all Islamic world, also they were creeping in there. So there was a lot of debate, and they used to make slogans of revolution, the red revolution and all that in the colleges and in the cities, and it was going on all over the world. It was a movement going on. So in a reaction to that movement, the Islamist or Islam-loving people, they started saying, yes, we are going to bring an Islamic revolution. Just to oppose that, they have to have something similar to counter this narrative of communism or red revolution. So they say Islamic revolution. But if you see from the Sunnah of Prophet ﷺ, there is no revolution in Islam. It is all gradualism. It all happened very gradually. 13 years of Makkah, 10 years of Medina. It took 23 years gradually to change the society, and the society did not turn on itself. It did not just completely change like what happens in revolutions, but it gradually just moved from one place to another place, very elevated place, and then this momentum continued even after the Prophet ﷺ, and they continued to progress in the same direction. But it was slow change. It is I like the Chinese philosophy also. In China also, in their tradition, this is something that they follow and they advocate, is that the change should come slow. They say little bit at a time, little bit at a time. This is how they have something in their culture. So that is something Islam also worked according to that. This revolutions and all that, this is not really the area of Islam. Having said that, now look at some of the cultures and how Islam is interacting today. The same phenomena is happening today as well, that in the societies that are developing, the Islamic societies, Islamic communities which are developing, for example, in the Americas or in the West, they are going through an evolution. They are changing themselves. So what the phenomena that happened over there is that people from various parts of the world, Muslims, they went there, and there were local Muslims present there even before the immigration started. The Afro-American diaspora, there was a big number of Muslims in there as well. And then the local Muslims from the white Caucasian Muslims, they reverted to Islam, and recently there is more of a coming to Islam from the Hispanic diaspora as well. So it is a mix of cultures in America. America is a very special experience for Islam. Elsewhere also in Europe, some part of it you can see, but especially in the United States, this is an excellent example of how culture interacts with Islam to evolve. So if I tell you that what represent an Islamic culture in the United States, to me, or United States or America, Canada inclusive, to me, the culture that prevails in the Islamic centers is actually the evolving Islamic culture of America. It is a combination of all the cultures, people from all over the world, Egyptians, Pakistanis, Bangladeshis, Indians, and Moroccans, and Algerians, and you name it, Palestinians, all kind of Arabs and non-Arabs, Turkish people, they are there, Indonesia, Malaysia. So they all come to the same center, and then this center itself is a part of the culture. In the Muslim world, you will find masajid, but you don't have Islamic centers. But Islamic centers is the hallmark of the communities abroad. In the non-Islamic world, where they are minority communities. This is This is how they function there. They have their centers, which are actually the Islamic cultural centers. Some of them even call themselves like that. The others just call them Islamic centers, but actually they are Islamic cultural centers. So these centers, as I said, that this is a special phenomena, that we have cultural centers attached to the masjid, where the whole families of Muslims, they go there, the kids go there, they interact with each other, and they are developing a combined Islamic culture of that land. So that is very important, that the Muslims who are living in those society, that they associate themselves to these centers. They are available everywhere in the US or in other parts of the Western world. So this is very important, because this is evolving cultures, and our children, our next generations should grow with this culture. What happens generally, that when the immigrants move to such places as United States, I would say that I would divide them into three categories. The immigrants, they will go, some of them will try to just simulate and just become like the culture they are in. Like if they went to America, they just want to become American, even more American than the American, even more American than the apple pie. So they would start criticizing their own religion, their own culture, try to go away from there, and they go indulge into the things that are not very nice. And then sooner or later they realize, when they start losing their children or somebody from the family to the society the way that they would not expect, or they would not like to happen, then it happens, and then they realize. And if it happens to someone, then my advice is that as soon as the realization comes, right there, the journey back to the Islamic culture should start, and they should revert back to where they belong actually. So this is the first type of people. The other type of people they go there, and then they would like to associate with the social groups. Social groups means the cultural groups. For example, somebody from Pakistan would like to associate with the Pakistani Association, the Bangladeshi will associate with Bangladeshi Association, and so forth. Everybody in their own corners, their own pocket. They are happy. The Pakistanis are happy to just eat biryani. The Bengalis are happy to eat the fish, and like that. So they have their own cultural pockets. That's where they think that we are safe, our families are okay, we are going to attach to our language, our culture, our food, our clothing and all that, and that is enough for us. But that also is not the ideal situation, because these cultures which we brought to the United States or West as our baggage is going to go away. It's not going to stay with our children or grandchildren, because they are going to learn the local stuff. Language, the first generation hardly will be able to keep with them. Maybe the second generation, the third generation will lose it. So it is a natural process. It's going to happen. You will just keep a little bit of language with you. But the good thing is that, yes, it is true that if you lose your language, you lose your culture. That is an important point. So that's why they say that we want to stick to our own culture, our own language. But the right approach would be that you associate yourself with a culture which is evolving, which is developing, not to a culture which is dying in that land. It may be prospering in Pakistan or in Turkey or in Arabia, but it is dying there. It is a natural course. That's a new culture is evolving around the Islamic centers and masajid. That's where all the Muslims are going there. Even the language, which is right, that if you lose your language, you lose a lot of culture. But the language, for example, in those Islamic centers or Islamic gatherings, the English language is also being modified with the terminology that the Islamic terminology that is being introduced. If I make a statement, for example, if I say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala orders the Muslims to make the salat 5 times a day. I have introduced 2 terms of Islamic terminology in English. Otherwise, a non-Muslim person, when you say the same thing, he would say, God asked the Muslims to pray 5 times. So this is the difference. So this language is also, getting these influxes from the Islamic terminology. So the language, and it need to continue. Remember that at some time the Americans, these terms even like mujahideen and jihad and all that, that was introduced in English, and that is being used. That's true that some of these terms are used in a wrong way now, but it was a different thing like 30 years back when they were initially introduced as a very, very high status. The people of very high status need to be, they used to be defined as mujahideen when the Afghan war was going on against the Soviet Union. But anyway, so the language will develop, the food is going to be in the masajid, in the Islamic centers. You see there is a culture there. In Ramadan, for example, you will see people gathering there, making fast, breaking their fast over there, and enjoying the time. The whole families are there. There's Arab food, there's Pakistani food, there are other food. So it's part of the culture. And the clothing. So what Islam says to us is that, for example, in case of clothing or in case of your food, the only thing it says that don't eat the things that are haram. Other than that, you can eat whatever you like. If you like cassava, if you're Nigerian, that's fine. It has no problem. The others may enjoy as well. If you want to eat biryani, that's not a problem, or baklava or whatever. So if it is not haram, so just that part is Islamic. Other than that, there is a lot of culture, and these cultures are mixing up in Islamic centers. Same is true with the clothing. That just there is some satar, there is some restrictions for women and men to wear certain things, and do not wear, dress yourself like that. Other than that, there can be shalwar kameez or pants or jubba or whatever. So this is the combination that I said, that I always say that Islamic centers are the places where this culture is developing. So associate with these Islamic centers. That is the place where the new Islamic culture of America is going to emerge from. It is evolving around that place. Let me tell you a couple of things before we end our talk, because there is, from my experience in the United States, when we were there, when I was a student in early 90s, once I asked my wife to go to a wedding that was organized by one of the Afro-American group of Muslims, which is under the Jama of Walisuddin Muhammad. The Walisuddin Muhammad Jama, they are Afro-Americans. They came from non-Muslim background to Islam, and then they are developing there, and everybody considers them as Muslims. There are some differences, some deficiencies. Everybody has that. So my wife went to a wedding there, and then she came back. She was very angry. The reason was, they were playing music and in that during that nikah, and then the groom came, and then he kissed the bride in front of everybody. It was a surprise. It was a completely cultural shock for my wife, because in Pakistan or in India or in Bangladesh, the woman who is getting married, she doesn't even look up. She always look down. So there is no chance of the groom after the nikah coming and kissing the wife. So but that was a norm in that culture. So there may be some things that are not comfortable. Your comfort zone may not stay there, but it has to happen. This is the beauty of a culture which is developing. Some things, some good things we will take from each other. So there is no need to criticize too much. There may be some people who are more conservative. There are other who will be more moderate. There will be other who are more modern. Everyone has to offer something. We don't need to quarrel. Everyone has something good, but just we need to look for that good in each other's unit, and then grow from there. The other story that I want to share, which is also a very moving story for me, that when I went to school in Virginia, that the closest masjid was that of an Afro-American in the Afro-American community. So I used to go pray over there. When I went to pray over there, so people were, when the Imam was saying Allahu Akbar, when he goes to the ruku or to sujood, all the people in the Jama'ah, they would say Allahu Akbar behind him loudly. So after I think it was the first or second day, then after the salat, I asked the Imam, I said that, Imam, this is not the Islamic way that everybody should say Allahu Akbar. So the Imam said, brother, bring me the hadith and we will stop doing that. And I went back and started looking for the hadith in the books of hadith, Bukhari, this and that. And I couldn't find any hadith there. In fact, I found a hadith that was supporting their way, the way they are doing that. The people should say Allahu Akbar after the Imam. But there was no definition that it should be loud or should be within yourself. So I went back and told the Imam that that's how it is, But in most of the Muslim world, we say Allahu Akbar, but we say in our heart, don't say loudly. So the Imam told me an important thing that I kept with me for all my stay in the United States. And he said that, brother, when people come from the other places, they bring with them their cultures and they sell it to us in the name of Islam. And if we start taking all that, we will be a confused community. So what we have done is we have made a rule for ourselves that we will only obey if anybody can bring us some evidence from the Sunnah, from the Hadith, from the Quran. Otherwise, we don't think that it is necessary to follow. So I think that was the right choice for the right environment, because the place they are living in, that is the best solution to keep them just strict to the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ and don't get distracted from so many cultures. But again, this all thing, local, non-local, different cultures of the world, they are all getting together there in the Western countries and evolving a beautiful culture from the mixing of these cultures under the shade of Islam. That's what is needed for that society and for any other society of Islam as well, that the norms, the values of Islam should be preserved. But other than that, Islam has no problem with the culture. This statement, I don't agree with that. Sometimes people say that, don't mix your culture with Islam. Islam is always a mixture of culture and the Islamic values. So there may be varieties, but they are all Islamic cultures. There is one thing that I would like to tell my viewers, my observation that I have seen in the United States, in our masajid, in our centers, and it should be, I guess it is the same thing in other parts of. I heard about South Africa also, similar things happen over there to a much greater extent. So I am talking about the local Muslim, the reverted Muslims. Remember that all the Sahaba were revert Muslims. They were not Muslims to start with. They were all outside of Islam, and then they accepted Islam, became Muslims. So they have a freshness to their iman. That's why the whole Islamic, Islam flourished and spread all over the world, because of that freshness. So these people who revert to Islam, they bring a freshness with them, with their iman. What happens is in our culture, in our centers, sometimes these people are not given proper space, mostly because of the language barrier, and mostly in the woman part. That the woman, because most of the first generation Muslim, I would not say most of them, a big number of them were not very comfortable with conversation in English. So these women, or reverted women, would go and sit there and nobody would talk to them. And so to a certain extent, it also happened in the men as well. But now things are getting better as the second and third generation of Muslims are more well versed in English, and they are and with the culture also, and they are ready to engage with them. So remember, these people has a lot to offer to the culture, to the freshness of their iman will be beneficial for us also if we keep them engaged and then learn from them and teach them as well something good that we have. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المؤمنين والمؤمنات. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Islam at a Glance was brought to you by
रिस्को कंस्ट्रक्शन कॉरपोरेशन, मकानात की नए सिरे से तामीर हो या घर और दफ्तर की है रेनोवेशन का मसला, तो रिस्को कंस्ट्रक्शन कॉरपोरेशन की खिदमात हासिल कीजिए। 100% इंश्योरेंस के साथ मुकम्मल काम, मुनासिब दाम। रिस्को कंस्ट्रक्शन कॉरपोरेशन, फ़ोन 9166429006।